Hey guys, this is Steve from Wolves at the Gate, and you're listening to the
It happens every time. It's a tongue twister.
Brutifully, brutally delicious.
Delicious. Yep.
Hey guys, this is Steve from Wolves at the Gate, and you're listening to the Brutally Delicious podcast.
I'm Bruce. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem.
I think I saw you guys. Well, not I think. I saw you guys back here in Richmond, Virginia. You guys were on the Red Jumpsuit Apparatus tour a long time ago, right?
Yeah,
Like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, maybe even more. I don't know.
yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, I think I saw you. You played the Canal Club here.
Oh, cool.
So now that you guys are we're coming out of the other side of this, what's it like to finally be seeing the light of day and getting a record out and planning tours and that sort of thing?
Yeah, just feels normal, so it feels good. Yeah, it we're not like totally out of the woods with all that stuff, but it definitely seems to be getting back to what I guess we once called normal. So yeah, it's exciting because it's yeah, it's hard when you're doing something you love and you kind of have to just press pause.
Right. Are you doing anything different to prepare for this round of record releases and touring and that sort of thing, or is it just same old, same old?
What do you mean? Like in anything in particular? Or?
I mean, are there different precautions you're taking, or different? I don't know, maybe not doing meet and greets or any of that sort of thing.
Well, we've never really done meet and greets. We generally just hang out after the show. Really, it's just going to come down to the venues and their regulations, because every city is different too, or every state for that matter. And also, it also depends on, if we're not the headliner, I think for the most part, they're kind of the ones who generally dictate
Right.
what happens there. So really for us, our preparation is we just want to be able to be flexible. And yeah, do the best we can to, if we are playing shows, we want to give people what they paid for, give them
Right.
the best show we can give them, and also get a chance to connect with fans, but also at the same time, we don't want that to be at the cost of, having to miss the
Right.
next 5 shows.
Right. So there's a whole different mindset, maybe, or maybe there's not, but I would think there's a different mindset, or it's always going to be in the back of your head, right?
Yeah, there's a lot more you have to think about. It's a whole other factor. I mean, honestly, whenever I'm on tour, I was always trying as hard as I could to not get sick because it's just hard not to get sick on tour because you are,
Run
yeah,
down.
just, yeah. And the nature of touring is you're just in public areas all the time. And, yeah, I mean, I always I washed my hands everywhere I went and tried to be mindful of that. That was pre-COVID. So,
Right.
I'm not a hypochondriac. I need my voice to perform, and
Right.
I hate the idea of somebody paying to come to one of our shows because it's happened before where I'm dead, vocally because I'm sick, and I want to be able to give people the show they paid for.
How have you kept your vocal cords and your voice in shape during these years? It's been 2 years, I guess, almost.
Yeah.
Years that you haven't been, every night playing. You have a regimen you've been keeping up with?
Yeah. Before any tour, depending on how long our set is, I have like a regiment that I go through to get stamina up. And, thankfully we've been consistently, writing and recording since the pandemic, because we put out a record in 2019 and we had to cancel a tour because it was literally going to go out right as lockdown happened in 2020. And so we just got to work on, we did like reimagined versions of songs off our last record. So I got right away to doing that. And whenever I'm tracking vocals, I'm singing a ton, and so doing that. And then right after that, got to working on writing and recording, eulogies, which, yeah, again, had me like singing, at least 2-3 times a week for like an hour or two. So that was one way I kept up vocals for sure. But yeah, I got COVID And I remember trying to sing once I felt better, and oh man, that my butt was kicked on that because it really messed with my lungs, and
Right.
I had to like build up my stamina again because I was getting tired after singing like 5 songs, and I was like, this is not good.
Right.
So,
Right.
thankfully, I think I'm back to normal, but we'll
Well, good.
see.
So Eulogies, I think, is this Friday, right? It comes
Yeah,
out. Now that it's out, and I imagine you said you wrote most of this through the pandemic. Is it a was it a cathartic experience? Like I imagine most of what we've went through has been shows up in this record. Is that going to be correct?
yeah, yeah. I think it was the first time, I really sat down to write a record, and all I really had was myself. I didn't have a lot of outside experiences to pull from because everybody was having inside experiences.
Right.
Um, and so it definitely produced something different, but also something really special for me. And I'm looking forward to just seeing how, yeah, a lot of the things that I kind of worked through and thought about, hopefully they're things that will help other people and encourage them and, uh, you know, give hope. So yeah, that's definitely something different because generally there's always like a couple songs that I'll kind of write coming, just straight from what I'm thinking about, what I'm experiencing on each record. But I would say this whole record, maybe minus a song, was completely through that lens.
Is there something, and this may not apply at all, but is there a takeaway you want your fans to walk away from after listening to Eulogies?
Yeah, in a sense, um, there's this idea, a eulogy is something that can be seen as something that's really dark and sad, but it also can be something that's really beautiful and hopeful. And really, for me, when I kind of looked in the mirror and just thought about a lot of things that I've been through, different like things that I've kind of had to struggle through, different aspects of suffering, all of those things, I think whenever we're going through suffering, we tend to think of ourselves as the victim. But a lot of times we don't realize is that there's a lot of these things that we bring into our lives, we invite. And a lot, a lot of from what I've seen in my own personal life was things that I kind of invited, kind of like you think the enemy is out there on the outside, but the reality is the enemy's sitting at your dinner table, and a lot of times you're looking at it in the mirror, and it's yourself. And there are a lot of things in me that really needed to die. Things that were really ugly. A lot of pride, a lot of self dependence. And really, man, I honestly could go through a long list. A lot of times it doesn't mean much to other people, but it means a lot to me. And I hope that people are able to kind of look at, I guess, sort of the things that I cataloged, if they're able to identify with them, is not be afraid of really what you see in the mirror, because a lot of our music revolves around this idea of looking at everything in life through the lens of this grace that's been made available through God. I know religion's not a topic that a lot of people like to think about in rock music, but the reality is that it touches every aspect of life, of my life, and everyone's life, whether I guess we want to admit it or not.
Right.
And so really my understanding of God's grace and his love has been probably the most prominent thing that has impacted my entire life. And so looking at all of these things that I guess, struggles, trials, suffering, they all were working to produce something better in me
Right.
than I could have seen. And so that's why the record's called Eulogies, is that there is sad and grieving in it, but there's something beautiful, because a lot of times a eulogy is recognizing something that's sad and
Right.
bitter, but something that's sweet at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it could be touching as well, right? Uncle Joe or something was the greatest guy in the world or something like that.
Yeah.
That's great. So I imagine then with your music being so introspective and emotional, you must connect with fans on a pretty good basis. What's it like when the song you writ the song you have written in your studio or in your bedroom or whatever touches somebody across the world sitting in their living room in say India or China? I mean, that's got to be a great big payoff, right?
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, that's the power of music. I've seen how that's happened for me. As I mean, still not. It still happens. But being the recipient of hearing music and hearing, I guess, how powerful it can be. When I see that, that's kind of what made me want to make music. Really, is connecting with, feeling like I knew somebody who I'd never met before, or I felt like they knew me better than I even knew myself. A record that did that for me was Son, I Loved You at Your Darkest by a band called As Cities Burn.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like the lyricist described a lot of, um, I guess, how I was self-righteous, growing up, not really understanding what the gospel was about, thinking that it was about how good I must be in earning God's love and his favor, and realizing that I could never earn it, and I was actually a hypocrite, to say that I was, a Christian, believing in grace, but living as if I've earned it and
Right.
merited, God's love for me. And so, that's definitely impacted me, and it's really cool when people are able to identify, with our music in that same way, where they recognize the same weaknesses in themselves, but find themselves to be so encouraged by, the truth of grace, of, amidst such failures.
Do you ever find yourself when you're writing thinking, "Hey, this is too vulnerable. I can't put this out there. What will people think?" Or do you just throw it all in there and hope people get it?
I think this is a really interesting question you asked, because you know I think there's a form of honesty that people can have that actually is self-serving. Like you're almost like bragging about
All right, look
how
at me.
honest you're being,
Right.
or it's for shock value. But I think there's an honesty that, I think true honesty humbles. Um, but I think false honesty produces false humility. And so really, I don't want to say anything in our music that's going to be shocking in the sense of like, oh, I can't believe he said this. But I want it to be shocking in the sense of like, wow, that's, um, maybe somebody here sees that and goes like, wow, that's like really true about me too.
Right.
And I've just not ever had words to put to it. That I've really appreciated when music's done that for me, where it feels like somebody said something for me that I've never been able to put into words. And kind of like unlocks, it's like a key that unlocks, a lockbox.
And the reason I asked that is because, I grew up in the church in the Christian music world, and I know for a fact, might be a little older than you, so maybe it's changed a little bit, but the religious scene, I'm not going to say Christian scene, is very judgmental and very quick to jump all over you. And I was curious if you were worried about alienating or the does this make sense? Or
Yeah.
the flashback that's going to come. That's probably not the word I'm looking for, but you know what I'm saying. That's going to come from putting it out there from that community, not necessarily your fans. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And to be honest, um, it's kind of like, how do I even compare this? To be honest, I don't care about their opinion, because their opinion is exactly that.
Right.
It's just an opinion. Um, there have been people who've had strong opinions about us our whole career.
Sure.
Whether they were Christians or whether they weren't Christians, and um, you know, I've just come to realize that, I don't ever write anything and just write it and not think about it. I understand the responsibility I have as an artist, you know, to the people that are listening to us. So I want to be mindful of that, and I'm not trying to stir any pots or anything. But at the same time, there's a lot of honest, hard truths that need to be said sometimes too. And some people got upset at us. We wrote a song called "Stop the Bleeding," um, because it was political in nature. And basically, the song is just about the fact that I really hate that the church has divided itself based on political parties, because that's not what we're called to do. We're called to, vote however you're going to vote, but your political leanings don't identify you. If you're a Christian, God's word should identify how you act and how you live. And there were people that were upset at us for saying that, because I was in the song, I was basically, how it, the Republican symbol is an elephant and the
Right.
Democratic symbol is a donkey. I just changed the metaphors to a wolf and a vulture, because I feel like the two political parties, that's actually more representative of how they are a lot of the time. And it upsets people, and I think it's just because it upsets this idea of how we think things should look. And I'm fine with that, because the reality is, I think there's a lot of things that you just kind of buy into based on how you're brought up, and this, even in whatever church denomination you grow up in, or whatever household, that we just buy and we just accept but never question, and never test it against what we're claiming to live by.
Right.
And so, yeah, that example applies exactly to what you're saying. With your question is, yeah, I don't test it based on how people are going to react to it. I test it based off of what's true. And to me, that's where the power is. And yeah, I don't want people to be impacted. I want people to be impacted by our music and the messaging there. And I don't want to pander to a crowd. I'm not interested in that. That doesn't make good music either. I think
I
that's
think
why.
it's not
Yeah,
honest and it's not organic then, and then it
yeah,
doesn't, I think it falls flat. You're right.
yeah. Well, and honestly, that's why I guess it's underground music doesn't feel like underground music anymore, because of social media and whatnot. But like, that's why I got into this music, because I felt like it wasn't pandering to the crowds. It was honest, and that's kind of the sad thing about Nirvana, is that bands like that got huge, and they weren't really pandering to the crowds, but they were actually doing exactly what the masses wanted. But
Right.
it unfortunately got commercialized in a way that probably they didn't even want it to be. So
Right. So let's talk Peace That Starts the War. What a banger tune. Absolutely love it. What's been the response to it so far? Has it been pretty good?
yeah, it's been good. We always just try to keep adding different elements. I think we like it when people think they know who our band is, and then are kind of like, wait, that's you. You guys put a guitar solo in there. It's just like, yeah, we like, because we like it. It's or some people, there's always something to say, but I think that people have come to realize that our musical tastes are pretty broad, and we just like exploring. And so that was just such a fun track to make, and we love just kind of throwing inhibitions in the wind and just going, hey, do we dig it? Let's go for it. And that's why we love that track so much, is that was really just us going, yeah, okay, we're not going to repeat the chorus again, the third time. Guitar solo, and let's hit him with this riff, and we'll see you later.
So, and this may not apply as well, but do you ever think that it's going to be too outside of your fan base wheelhouse, or do you not care? It's just you're going to do it, and everybody has to kind of go along.
Obviously we want our fans to enjoy our music, but my favorite bands are always the bands that they didn't give me the last record, again, repackaged. There's so many albums that I've listened to that I didn't like the first time, and they're now favorites,
Right.
because I like the idea of being pushed about what I think about, and you know what? There's tons of people who are like, they just want X, and if we don't give that to them, they're upset. That's fine. There's lots of X out there. Go find it, and if we've had people say, oh, I wish you'd write something more like this band, I'm like, well, go listen to that band. There's lots of people who don't want what that band's offering, and they want what we're offering.
Right.
And so, yeah, we just want to keep creating in a way that, is exciting for us too. Because I'm sure you can imagine, we're on our 5th full length and a bunch of other EPs. We want to be just as excited about music today as we were when we first started, and that's how we feel.
Right. And I imagine you don't want to, I think what you're saying is you don't want to write the same record. You need to show some kind of growth or improvement, or to differentiate from the last record, right? Eulogies can't be the record from 3 ago. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of love I love the idea of, as we grow, like honestly, every record, it's always exciting for me, because it's like, man, I can't believe we made this. This is so cool. This is like what I've wanted to hear. And that's what we make, is we make music we want to hear. And hopefully our fans trust us by now, that, they like us because they like our instincts, and there's a degree to which it's like, you got to give the artist the chance to grow and trust them too, unless we just totally flipped the script and started making, super cheeseball music. But
probably with the way the music business is now, that's probably not the way to go, right? Because everybody's trying to just make it.
Yeah.
What's next for Wolves at the Gate?
Yeah, like we talked about earlier, gonna do some touring. Really that's all that happens now that the album's getting released. We've got some other cool video content that we've been working on. Some that's going to get released, not too far after the records come out, and we've got a lot of other like behind the scenes stuff that we want to get out there to our fans. Especially just because of the way the world's been. We're just trying to find as many ways to connect with people that are listening to us and enjoying our music, and so through touring and lots of other cool content like that, we're going to try and connect with people.
Awesome. So again, it comes out this Friday, March 11th. I've only heard the single, but I'm looking forward to the full record. I appreciate what you guys do, and I hope to see you somewhere along the road.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thank you.
Hope that wasn't too bad. We'll see you on the road here somewhere.
No, it was great. Thanks.
All right, be well.
Ever wonder what a punch from Elton John feels like?
Or how you'd cope with having turned down the chance to be in Nirvana?
Or what signal Keith Richards gives when he wants you to get the hell out of his hotel room?
Fans of Too Much Effing Perspective don't have to wonder, because they've heard these exact stories and a jillion others on our podcast. I'm Alex Hoffman, former tour manager for Radiohead.
And I'm musician and comedy writer Alan Keller. On the TMEP show, we get guests like Nancy Wilson from Heart, Jeremiah Frates from the Lumineers, and Modern Family's Julie Bowen to tell us things they may have only shared with their therapist, clergy, or a TMZ stringer.
So join us on Too Much Effing Perspective. That's EFFING Perspective. The only podcast you crank up to 11.